A man accepts a dinner invitation from his ex-wife. It's supposed to be a quiet night with old friends, nothing unusual. At first, everything feels normal. There's laughter, drinks, and familiar faces. But at the same time, something is off. The conversations suddenly turn strange, and things get even weirder when all the doors are closed. All of a sudden, leaving doesn't feel as easy as it should. Tension rises, and the night begins to feel planned. Because as it turns out, this isn't just a reunion. It's a carefully set stage, and by the time he realizes what's really going on, he may already be part of something he can't escape. Earlier that evening, before all the madness, Will and his girlfriend Kira are on their way to a dinner party hosted by his ex-wife, Eden, and her new partner, David. Will is pretty nervous about the whole thing because he and Eden actually got divorced after the accidental death of their young son, and he still hasn't gotten over it. After their separation, Eden turned to a grief support group where she met David, and it didn't take long for the two to run away to Mexico together. Now, 2 years later, they're back, and have suddenly invited Will and some old friends to some kind of reunion party. Will gets distracted by the conversation while drunk and accidentally runs into a coyote on the road. Seeing that creature is too badly injured, he decides to put it out of its misery. Soon they arrive at Eden's luxurious home, and Kira is blown away by the fact that Will used to live there, but the man simply clarifies that Eden is the actual owner of the place and that it never belonged to him. Upon entering, Will is hit with a flashback of his son who died, and it instantly puts him in a bad mood. Regardless, he's forced to keep a smile on his face and greet his old buddies. Will reunites with his old friends, which include Tommy, his boyfriend Miguel, along with Ben, Claire, and Gina. They're all pretty excited to see each other after a long time. Will asks about their other friend Choi, Gina's boyfriend. Gina replies that he is running late, and she can't get reception. Then Eden and David arrive and greet everyone. Eden hugs Will and tells him she missed him. David thanks Will for coming, stating that they have so much to discuss and celebrate. After that, David gets an expensive bottle of wine and starts pouring for everyone. While they're all talking, Will spots a half-naked woman standing in the hallway. He is shocked and shaken and thinks he's seeing things. Then she walks into the room and introduces herself as Sadie and says she met David and Eden while they were in Mexico and has been living with them ever since. The party picks up after that, but Will can't help but feel that something's off. He starts quietly walking around the house, and when he wanders into the kitchen, is hit with a memory of Eden trying to cut her wrist years ago. Suddenly, Eden sneaks up behind him and tells him he looks good. Will asks about the changes around the house, like the bars fixed on the windows. She tells him that it's for security since she was alone for a while. He then asks how she's really doing, and she tells him she's never been better. She says that she is free from all the pain and suffering she used to carry. Ben walks in right at that moment, and Eden launches into a whole speech about how pain is a choice, happiness is available to everyone, and that negative emotions are just chemical reactions you can push out of your body. Ben laughs at the speech, saying that her speech is a bit too much, and Eden slaps him right across the face. She scolds him to stop joking about everything, then walks off. Will and Ben just stare at each other, both shaken. They agree that something is seriously wrong with both Eden and David. Ben reasons that she probably never recovered mentally from losing their son, then turns to Will and asks if he's doing okay. Will admits he hasn't moved on either. When they go back to the living room, Eden apologizes to Ben and hands him a drink. Will gets pulled into a conversation with Claire, who tells him she's also feeling uneasy about the gathering. They see headlights outside, and everyone assumes it's Choi, who was supposed to arrive hours ago. But it's a stranger. David brings him in and introduces him as Pruitt, another person he met in Mexico. Meanwhile, Gina is getting anxious about Choi. With no phone signal, she asks to use the landline, but Eden says it got disconnected while they were in Mexico. Then David locks the front door and pockets the key. Will questions him, and David says there was a break-in nearby, so they're being careful. Will asks what happens if there's a fire. David reluctantly puts the key back in the lock and tells him to relax. Later, Will heads outside to grab firewood, but he's in his head, memories flooding him. He sees Eden slipping into her room and putting something in a drawer. After bringing the wood inside, he sneaks into her room and finds some pills with no label on them. He holds onto one and almost gets caught when David walks in and tells him to come back to the party. Will flashes back to when he and Eden were in a sweet private moment before their son wandered in and they shooed him back to bed. Back in the present, David and Eden gather everyone and announce they've joined a spiritual group called The Invitation. Sadie and Pruitt are members too. The group immediately senses cult vibes, but David insists it's just a community of people who've gone through grief, coming together to heal with members from all over the world. Then David shows them a video. In it, the group's leader talks about his community, saying his life's work is helping people rewire traumatic memories. Then the video shifts. The leader and some members are gathered around a dying woman. He asks her who she's excited to see on the other side. She says her father and her husband. He soothes her, promises her pain is almost over, and tells her not to be afraid. She dies. The leader tells everyone to feel her spirit leave. The room goes silent. Everyone is in shock. David and Eden try to explain that death isn't something to fear. David then opens up about himself, saying that after his wife died, he fell apart and turned to cocaine. The invitation is what pulled him back. He starts talking about Eden losing their son too, and that's when Will shuts down. The doorbell rings. Pruitt and David go to the door and talk to some people Will can't quite see or hear. David comes back and casually says it was just neighbors looking for a party. Will doesn't believe. He goes into the kitchen to recuperate, and Miguel follows him. Since Miguel is a doctor, Will shows him the pill he took from Eden's drawer. Miguel says it's a barbiturate, not dangerous in small amounts, but very dangerous if you take too many. David eventually apologizes for the video and suggests they lighten things up with a game called I Want, where everyone just says what they want out loud. Sadie kicks things off by saying she loves everyone in the room, then kisses Gina on the lips. Then it's Pruitt's turn. He tells the group about his wife. They were married 8 years. One night, drunk and arguing, he hit her. She fell, hit her head, and died. He did 7 years in prison. He says the man who walked out of prison was the same man who went in until he found the invitation. He says he no longer grieves or carries guilt because he believes he'll see her again. Everyone is horrified. Claire has had enough and gets up to leave. David tries to stop her, but Will backs her up and says she can go if she wants. Pruitt says he parked behind her and needs to move his car, so they both go outside. Will watches from the window. He sees Pruitt move the car. Claire starts driving out, but then Pruitt stops her for some reason. Suddenly, David pulls Will aside and confronts him about his attitude. Will apologizes and admits he maybe wasn't ready to be here tonight. David tells him they all have to keep moving forward. At dinner, Will is barely present. Flashes of memories of his son's birthday, the day he died, keep reoccurring. He steps outside to breathe. On his way downstairs, he peeks through a cracked door and sees Sadie making strange faces in a mirror. She sees him, and he walks off quickly. Out by the pool, Sadie finds him and starts asking about his relationship with Kira, saying she seems distant from him. Then she blatantly suggests they sleep together. She says everyone back in Mexico was intimate with each other and that there's no reason to deny themselves pleasure. Will shuts it down and sends her back inside. He tries to find a signal to check on Choi, who still hasn't shown up. Tommy comes over and tells him to stop being weird because he's freaking people out. Once Tommy leaves, Will gets a bar of signal and finds a voicemail from Choi. In it, Choi says he came by the front door earlier but forgot dessert, so he left a voicemail for Will to pick it up. Will's blood runs cold. Choi was at the door, and nobody let him in. He quietly goes back to the table. The lights go off, and Eden comes out with a birthday cake for Miguel. Will can't hold it in anymore. He demands to know where Choi is and tells everyone about the voicemail. Eden denies Choi ever showing up. Will starts connecting the dots out loud. He starts asking uncomfortable questions. Kira tells him they should just leave, but Will won't drop it. Then the doorbell rings. It's Choi. He explains that he came by earlier, but had to run back out for work. Will completely falls apart. He starts crying and apologizes over and over. Eden and David tell him it's fine because he's family. Later, Kira finds Will alone in the backyard and sits with him. He tells her he's still in so much pain and can't stop blaming himself for his son's death. She gently reassures him. He then goes to his son's old bedroom by himself, standing there alone. Memories come rushing back. Through the window, he notices David outside lighting a red lantern. He goes to the laptop that played the recruitment video and finds another clip on it. In this one, the cult leader tells his members not to be afraid and says a reward is waiting for those who take the necessary steps and give themselves up. Will goes back to the dinner table. Everyone is being poured another glass of wine. David says something about being glad they're all together, and they raise their glasses. Gina already takes a sip, and then Will tells everyone to stop and disrupts them. Sadie immediately goes for him, accusing him of ruining everything. He shoves her away, and she falls, hitting her head on the corner of a desk. Everyone rushes over to check on her, and that's when they notice Gina collapsed in her chair, foaming at the mouth. The wine was poisoned. They begin to panic. Miguel rushes to help revive Gina, and David shoots him. Pruitt takes the gun and shoots Choi. Everyone starts running. Tommy tries to fight David, but Kira grabs a knife and cuts him. They all bolt downstairs, only to find every door locked. Will and Kira barricade themselves in a room, but the windows are all barred. Through the window, they watch in horror as David and Pruitt drag Ben into the backyard and shoot him. Kira starts spiraling, but Will holds her together. He tells her these are just people, and they can fight back. They creep down the hall and overhear David and Eden arguing. Eden sounds disturbed as she says they were only supposed to die peacefully from the poison. David coldly says they are chosen and they have to see this through no matter what. Once the two leave, Will takes Kira upstairs looking for a way out. They find Sadie, who has impaled herself with a fireplace poker. Will carefully takes it. Then Pruitt appears with the gun. He's about to shoot when Will knocks the weapon out of his hands. They fight and Pruitt starts winning. Just as it looks like it's over for Will, Kira grabs the poker and beats Pruitt until he stops moving. They head back downstairs and run into Eden holding a gun. She shoots at Will and hits him, but misses anything vital. Then she turns the gun on herself and shoots herself in the stomach. David shows up calling for Eden. Will warns him to stay back. David doesn't care. He says he's going to be dead soon anyway. Then Tommy, who somehow survived the stabbing, reappears and tackles David. The two fight, and Tommy gets the better of it, stabbing David until he dies. In the quiet after, Will and Kira go to Eden. She's barely holding on. She tells Will she misses their son and asks him to take her outside. He does, and she dies in the open air. The three survivors hold each other and break down. Then they hear police sirens in the distance, and then screaming from the neighboring house. A gunshot. And when they look up, red lanterns are glowing from windows all over the neighborhood, just like the one David lit earlier. The cult wasn't just at this house, it's everywhere. Everyone was hosting their friends in order to carry out the instructions from their cult. In the end, we get to see that the whole dinner party wasn't a reunion at all. It was an organized cult suicide that was even much bigger than what it appeared to be at first. Eden and David followed the teachings of the cult leader, who believed that the ultimate solution to grief is a peaceful death surrounded by the ones you love. The couple, paralyzed by their trauma, had been brainwashed in the so-called support group and ended up luring their innocent friends to their suicide party with the help of other cult members hiding in plain sight. Luckily, Will kept his guard up and was able to escape, saving Kira as well, and at the very end, the entire thing became clear to him. This wasn't just a small ritual planned by the couple. The entire community was involved as they all had the same red-lit candles outside their houses. That's it for today's story, guys, but before you leave, I gotta ask, would you have stayed that long at the dinner party when things started getting weird, or would you have played it cool to watch things unfold too? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more twisted stories like this.